Look who finally stopped pretending. Hello to the masterminds who played stupid on purpose, the strategists who wore fool's clothing, the silent assassins who let everyone think they were harmless. Hello to you, because something shifted, didn't it? They thought you were the punchline, the one they could dismiss with a laugh and a pat on the head. The background character who'd never amount to anything worth remembering. They built their little kingdoms on the assumption that you'd stay down there, beneath them, grateful for scraps. But you didn't just stand up. You flipped the entire table, sent their chess pieces flying into oblivion, shattered their game board into splinters they're still picking out of their skin. And now, they're standing there, mouths open, eyes wide, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. They're scrolling back through every interaction, every dismissive comment, every time they underestimated you. They're replaying the footage in their minds like it's a crime scene, 'cause to them, it is. You committed the ultimate offense. You weren't who they decided you were. You didn't follow the script they wrote in their heads, where you stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed exactly where they needed you to be so they could feel superior. You let them think you were simple, and that was your first move in a game they didn't even know they were playing. They thought you were slow, but you were studying. They thought you were weak, but you were calculating. They thought you were lost, but you were mapping every single exit, every weakness, every crack in their foundation. And when the moment came, when everything was perfectly aligned, you didn't announce it. You didn't warn them. You didn't give them time to brace themselves. You just moved, and the whole damn world tilted on its axis. Now they're the ones looking stupid. Now they're the ones scrambling to explain how they missed it. How someone they mocked, someone they dismissed, someone they laughed at behind closed doors just became the one person they can't stop thinking about, can't stop talking about, can't stop trying to understand. Welcome to your awakening. And trust me, this is just the beginning. Let's talk about what you really did here, because most people will never understand the genius of it. You didn't just stay quiet, you performed. You gave them exactly what they wanted to see, a version of you that matched their limited imagination, their comfortable assumptions, their desperate need to feel smarter than someone. And you did it deliberately, consciously, brilliantly. You. Every time they talked down to you, you nodded. Every time they explained something you already knew, you listened with wide eyes like it was revelation. Every time they made a joke at your expense, you laughed along, even smiled, even thanked them for including you. They thought you were grateful. They thought you were clueless. They thought you were exactly what they needed you to be, completely unthreatening, totally manageable, permanently beneath them. But here's what they didn't see. While they were busy feeling superior, you were taking notes, mental photographs, recording every pattern, every weakness, every moment of arrogance. You learned how they think, how they move, what makes them feel safe, what makes them drop their guard. You became a student of their psychology. They were so busy laughing, they forgot to look at your eyes. They were so confident in their assessment of you, they never noticed you were running assessments on them. You played the long game while they were celebrating their quick wins. And that's where amateurs separate from architects. Amateurs need immediate validation, immediate recognition, immediate proof that they're winning. But you understood something they never will. Real power doesn't announce itself. It accumulates in silence. It builds in the shadows. It grows in the spaces where no one's watching. You let them have their moment, their laughs, their sense of superiority, because you knew something they didn't. All of that was temporary. All of that was surface. All of that was about to become irrelevant. You weren't building your case for them. You were building your empire, brick by brick, in complete darkness, with no audience, no cheerleaders, no witnesses, just you, your vision, your work, your relentless refusal to be what they decided you were. And every single day they underestimated you was another day you got stronger, smarter, more prepared for the moment when you'd finally show them who you actually are. And then it happened, that moment, that beautiful, devastating, earth-shattering moment when you stopped playing their game and started playing yours. They didn't see it coming because they'd gotten comfortable. They'd gotten lazy. They'd gotten so used to you being the joke that they forgot jokes sometimes have punchlines that knock you flat on your back. You walked into that room, that meeting, that situation, and something was different. Your energy had shifted. Your eyes weren't asking for permission anymore. They were declaring ownership. Your voice didn't have that apologetic tone they'd gotten so used to. It had steel in it, certainty, the kind of confidence that doesn't need volume to be heard. And for the first time, maybe the first time ever, they actually looked at you, really looked at you, and what they saw made their stomachs drop. This wasn't the person they knew. This wasn't the pushover, the doormat, the one who absorbed their disrespect with a smile. This was someone who'd been forged in the fire of their mockery, someone who'd used their underestimation as fuel, someone who'd transformed every insult into armor. You didn't just change, you evolved, and evolution is violent. It's sudden. It's irreversible. They tried to laugh it off at first, tried to make another joke, tried to put you back in the box where you belonged. But the box was already shattered, burned to ash, scattered across a timeline they could no longer access. You weren't going back, you weren't shrinking, you weren't apologizing for taking up space that was always yours to claim. You spoke, and the room went silent. Not out of respect at first, but out of shock. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Was this really the same person who used to nod along to their nonsense? Who used to accept their criticism without pushback? Who used to laugh at jokes that weren't funny just to keep the peace? But yes, it was you. Just the version of you that existed before they tried to convince you to be small. You'd simply stopped pretending, stopped performing, stopped protecting their fragile egos from the reality of who you actually were. And in that moment, in that single crystallized moment of truth, the entire power structure collapsed. The hierarchy they'd built with you at the bottom just disintegrated because you weren't participating anymore. You weren't playing your assigned role. You weren't accepting their authority. You weren't acknowledging their right to judge you. You just existed, fully, powerfully, unapologetically, and that existence alone was enough to flip every table in sight. Now let's talk about what happened next, because this is where it gets beautiful. They tried to recover, tried to pretend they'd known all along, tried to rewrite history in real time. Suddenly they were claiming they'd always seen potential in you. They'd always known you were capable. They'd always believed you'd do great things. Liars, all of them, transparent in their panic, desperate to save face as the ground crumbled beneath their feet. You watched them scramble, watched them try to align themselves with your success, watched them attempt to take credit for your transformation. They wanted to be mentors retroactively, supporters in hindsight, believers after the fact. But you remembered every dismissive comment, every condescending tone, every time they made you feel stupid for having vision they couldn't comprehend. You remembered it all. and your silence spoke volumes they'd never forget. Some of them got angry because anger is what happens when someone's carefully constructed worldview shatters. They couldn't accept that they'd been wrong about you, that their judgment was flawed, that their perception was limited. So they attacked, called you lucky, called you fake, called you every name they could think of except the one that was actually true. Brilliant strategists who played them like instruments. They needed you to be an accident, a fluke, anything but someone who deliberately outmaneuvered them. Others got quiet, retreated into themselves, started questioning everything. If they were wrong about you, what else were they wrong about? If someone they'd written off completely could rise like that, what did that say about their ability to assess talent, potential, worth? You became their crisis of confidence, their existential nightmare, the proof that their whole system of evaluation was fundamentally broken. And then there were the ones who tried to get close to you again, suddenly interested, suddenly friendly, suddenly acting like you'd been tight all along. They wanted access to whatever you had, whatever magic turned the joke into the legend. But you knew better. You'd learned discernment the hard way, and you weren't about to let people who celebrated your failure anywhere near your success. Boundaries became your new religion, and access to you became something earned, not assumed. The beautiful part, the truly poetic part, is that you didn't need their validation anymore. You didn't need them to admit they were wrong. You didn't need apologies. You didn't need acknowledgement. Your success was its own statement. Your transformation was its own evidence. Your existence at this new level was all the proof you needed that you'd been right all along. They could cope however they wanted. You were busy building kingdoms they couldn't even imagine. Here's what most people miss about what you did, the real mastery behind it all. You didn't just play dumb. You created a psychological environment where everyone around you felt safe in their superiority. You gave them the gift of certainty, the comfort of knowing they were smarter, better, more capable than at least one person, you. And humans, they love that feeling. They crave it. They'll do anything to maintain it. So they kept you around, kept you close, because having you there made them feel good about themselves. You were their confidence boost, their proof that they'd made it, their evidence that they were successful, because look, at least they weren't you. They fed off that dynamic, became addicted to it, structured their entire self-image around being better than the person who was actually 10 steps ahead of them the entire time. You created a blind spot so massive they could drive a truck through it. They stopped seeing you as a threat, because threats don't smile and nod, threats don't ask questions, threats don't appear grateful for scraps. You became invisible in plain sight, just part of the scenery, background noise in their story of success. And while they were busy being the stars of their own show, you were writing a completely different script. Strategic silence is a weapon most people never learn to wield. They think power is loud. They think influence means always being heard. They think respect comes from constant assertion. But you understood something deeper. Sometimes the most powerful position is the one no one's paying attention to. Sometimes the best move is the one no one sees coming. Sometimes winning means letting everyone think you're losing until the moment you reveal the final score. You watched, you learned, you absorbed. Every conversation where they talked over you, you learned how they process information. Every meeting where they ignored your input, you learned their decision-making patterns. Every moment they dismissed you, you gathered intelligence they didn't even know they were giving away. They thought you were harmless, so they were completely unguarded, and that was your advantage. The ones who truly win aren't the ones who fight every battle. They're the ones who choose their battles so carefully that by the time they engage, victory is already assured. You let them win 1,000 small victories so you could claim the one that actually mattered. You let them feel superior in moments that meant nothing so you could dominate in the moment that changed everything. That's not luck, that's strategy. That's patience. That's the kind of long-term thinking that separates legends from loudmouths. Let's get specific about that moment, that glorious, irreversible moment when you finally flipped the table. It wasn't dramatic in the way they show in movies, no grand speech, no theatrical gesture, no audience watching. It was quieter than that, more fundamental, more devastating precisely because of its simplicity. You just stopped participating in their reality and started operating in yours. Maybe it was a business move they said you'd never pull off. Maybe it was a relationship you walked away from that they said you needed. Maybe it was a career change they called impossible, a creative project they called delusional, a boundary you set that they called disrespectful. Whatever it was the moment you chose yourself over their opinion of you. And that choice detonated like a bomb in their carefully organized world. They felt it immediately, the shift, the power redistribution, the sudden absence of your participation in their hierarchy. You weren't asking anymore, you were stating. You weren't requesting, you were claiming. You weren't hoping, you were doing. And all those years of underestimating you, all those moments of dismissing you, they all came rushing back like a highlight reel of their own stupidity. The table flip wasn't about them. That's what they couldn't understand. It wasn't revenge, wasn't payback, wasn't some elaborate scheme to prove them wrong. It was about you finally recognizing that you'd been playing a rigged game, and the only winning move was to stop playing altogether. You didn't flip their table to spite them. You flipped it because you were done eating scraps, when you could build your own feast. They expected you to care about their reaction, to seek their approval even in your rebellion, to somehow still be tied to their validation. But you were already gone, already operating on a frequency they couldn't access, already building something they didn't have the vision to comprehend. They were still analyzing your last move while you were 10 moves ahead. And that gap, that distance, that's what true liberation looks like. The most powerful thing about that moment was its irreversibility. You can't unflip a table. You can't take back the moment someone sees you clearly for the first time. You can't stuff the truth back into the box of their comfortable lies. Once you showed them who you actually were, once you stopped pretending, once you claimed your power, there was no going back. The old dynamic was dead, buried, and you were the one holding the shovel. What you did, it didn't just affect those specific people who underestimated you. It sent ripples through everything, changed the entire ecosystem around you, rewrote the rules of engagement for everyone in your orbit. People who weren't even directly involved started treating you differently. 'Cause energy like that, transformation like that, it's contagious. It's undeniable. It shifts the atmosphere just by existing. Suddenly, people who never noticed you before were paying attention. Suddenly, opportunities that seemed impossible started appearing. Suddenly, conversations that used to exclude you were seeking your input. Not because you changed who you were, but because you stopped hiding who you'd always been. You removed the dimmer switch, turned on full power, and the light was too bright to ignore. But here's the thing. Not everyone was ready for it. Some people preferred the old you, the manageable you, the you that made them feel secure in their mediocrity. Your transformation threatened them because it proved that change is possible, that settling is a choice, that staying small is something people do to themselves. You became a walking reminder of everything they weren't willing to do, and that made you dangerous, Jake. That's what people remember. They weren't willing to do. And that made you dangerous. They started spreading stories, rewriting history to make your success seem less legitimate. You were lucky. You had connections. You had advantages. Anything to avoid admitting that you simply outworked, outsmarted, and outlasted them while they were busy laughing. The narrative had to change because the truth was too painful. You succeeded despite them, not because of them. And their egos couldn't survive that reality intact. Meanwhile, others were inspired. The people who'd also been playing small, who'd also been underestimated, who'd also been waiting for permission to be great. They saw what you did, and something clicked. You became proof that the system could be beaten, that the hierarchy wasn't permanent, that the joke could become the legend. You didn't mean to become a symbol, but that's what happens when you break through. You become a beacon for everyone still trapped. The ecosystem didn't just change, it reorganized around you. Your energy became central. Your moves became studied. Your choices became blueprints. People started asking different questions. Not how do we fit in, but how do we build something new like they did? You didn't just flip a table. You flipped the entire game board. And now everyone was playing by different rules. Rules you wrote by simply refusing to play by theirs. Let's be honest about something they'll never understand. The weight you carried all those years. Being underestimated isn't just frustrating, it's exhausting, it's painful. It's a special kind of violence, done to your spirit every single day. You knew who you were, what you were capable of, where you were going, but everywhere you turned, people were telling you a different story about yourself. They looked at you and saw a rough draft when you were already a masterpiece. They heard you speak and called it noise when you were dropping wisdom they weren't evolved enough to comprehend. They watched you work and called it lucky when it was actually the result of brutal discipline, endless hours, sacrifices they'd never make. The dissonance between who you knew you were and who they insisted you were, it creates a pressure that either crushes you or forges you into something unbreakable. You carried that weight silently, didn't you? You didn't complain, didn't make speeches about how misunderstood you were, didn't beg people to see your potential. You just kept moving, kept building, kept believing in yourself when literally no one else did. That takes a kind of strength most people will never possess. The strength to be your own witness, your own validator, your own source of truth, when the entire world is gaslighting you. Ah, look who crawled out of the quarantine zone. Look who survived the infection that was supposed to erase you from existence. Welcome back, you beautiful, scarred, unbreakable anomaly. Welcome back to the land of the living. Except you're not just living anymore, are you? No. You're something else entirely now. You're the one who caught the plague that kills 99% of people who touch it. And you didn't just survive it. You metabolized it. You absorbed it. You turned the poison into power. And now you walk through this world with antibodies made of pure fire. Do you feel it yet? That weight in your chest that used to be fear but now feels like armor? That's immunity, my friend, not just to the sickness that tried to kill you, but to everything that comes after it. Let's talk about what really happened, because they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to realize that the thing that nearly destroyed you was actually a filter. A sorting mechanism designed to separate the mortals from the immortals. You caught something that most people don't survive. Maybe it was betrayal so deep it rewired your nervous system. Maybe it was loss so brutal it shattered your concept of safety. Maybe it was isolation so complete you had conversations with shadows just to remember what words sounded like. Maybe it was a literal sickness that put you in a bed for months, staring at the ceiling, wondering if your lungs would remember how to breathe. Whatever it was fatal to most people. It killed their hope. It killed their trust. It killed their ability to get back up and try again. But you metabolized the venom, broke down the toxins, and rebuild yourself, cell by cell, into something they can't classify anymore. They watched you during the worst of it, didn't they? Oh yes, they watched. They came by with their concerned faces and their empty offers of help, secretly hoping you'd collapse completely so they could feel better about their own fragility. They wanted you to break in a way that made sense, in a way they could understand, in a way that kept you beneath them. But you didn't break the way they expected. You fractured in dimensions they couldn't see. You shattered in frequencies they couldn't hear. And when you reassembled, when you crawled out of that pit with new eyes and a new frequency, they realized something terrifying. You weren't weaker. You were weaponized. You weren't damaged, you were upgraded. You weren't a survivor, you were a warning label walking. A cautionary tale for anyone stupid enough to underestimate someone who's already died once and decided to come back with a vengeance. Let me tell you what immunity really means in this context, because it's not what they teach you in biology class. Immunity means you don't react anymore to the things that used to destroy you. It means betrayal doesn't shatter you anymore because you've been betrayed by everyone who mattered, and you're still here. It means abandonment doesn't scare you anymore because you've been left alone in the dark, and you learned to build fires with your bare hand. It means rejection doesn't wound you anymore because you've been rejected by the world itself and you responded by creating your own. You're not numb. Don't confuse immunity with numbness. Numbness is death pretending to be protection. Immunity is intelligence. It's your system recognizing a threat from a mile away and neutralizing it before it even gets close to your core. You feel everything, but nothing controls you anymore. That's the difference between someone who survived and someone who evolved. Now they're watching you move through the world and they can't understand it. They're asking each other in hushed voices, how are they so calm? How are they so unbothered? Why don't they react like they used to? They poke and prod, trying to trigger the old version of you, but that version is dead and buried 6 feet under the person you are now. They want you anxious because your peace terrifies them. They want you desperate because your self-sufficiency threatens them. They want you loud because your silence makes them face the noise in their own heads. But you've stopped performing. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped defending your existence to people who were never qualified to judge it in the first place. You survived something that statistically should have killed you, and now you carry the kind of calm that only comes from knowing you've already been through the worst. What can they do to you now? What can they threaten you with? What can they take from you that hasn't already been ripped away? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that makes you the most dangerous person in any room you enter. Here's what they don't tell you about surviving the unsurvivable. It doesn't just make you stronger in some abstract motivational poster kind of way. It fundamentally changes your operating system. Your threat detection becomes supernatural. You can feel lies before they're spoken. You can sense ulterior motives before they're revealed. You can detect fake energy from 3 rooms away. Your body remembers the taste of betrayal, the smell of manipulation, the texture of false promises, and now it reacts before your conscious mind even processes what's happening. You get a feeling, a tightness in your chest, a whisper in your gut, and you just know. And because you know, you move differently, you speak differently, what's that? Doubt you choose differently. You don't waste time on people who are auditioning for roles in your life they're not qualified to play. You don't invest energy in situations that your instincts flag as contaminated. You've developed an immune response to toxicity that operates automatically, efficiently, mercilessly. Most people spend their whole lives learning to ignore their instincts. You spent your darkest days learning to respect them. Let's go deeper into the sickness you survived, because naming it gives it power, and you need to understand what you conquered. Maybe it was the sickness of loving someone who was incapable of loving you back, and you poured yourself into them until you were a ghost of who you used to be. Maybe it was the sickness of living in an environment that slowly poisoned everything good inside you until you couldn't recognize your own reflection. Maybe it was the sickness of carrying everyone else's weight until your spine fractured and you learned what it meant to be buried alive by other people's problems. Maybe it was the sickness of perfectionism that turned every mistake into a death sentence and every failure into evidence that you didn't deserve to exist. Maybe it was the literal physical sickness that ate away at your body while everyone around you minimized your pain and told you to push through. Whatever form it took, it was lethal. It killed your innocence. It killed your naivety. It killed the part of you that believed the world was fair and people were good and effort guaranteed results. And those deaths were necessary because that version of you was too soft for what was coming. That version of you would never have survived the levels you're about to reach. You know what's beautiful about immunity? It's not just defense, it's offense. You're not just protected from the sickness, you're carrying antibodies that can neutralize it in others. People come to you now differently than they used to. They don't come for entertainment or validation or someone to use. They come because they feel something in your presence they can't quite name. Safety, groundedness, truth. They come because on some cellular level they recognize that you've been to hell and came back with the blueprints. And maybe, just maybe, if they stay close enough, some of that fire will transfer to them. But here's the thing. You're not a savior. You're not here to rescue people from sicknesses they're not ready to survive. You learned that the hard way. You learned that you can't save people who are addicted to their own suffering, who wear their wounds like identity, who mistake self-destruction for depth. So now you let them watch. You let them see what immunity looks like. You let them witness what happens when someone stops negotiating with their demons and starts using them as fuel. And if they're ready, if they're truly ready to do the work, you might offer a hand. But you're done carrying people who refuse to walk. They're calling you different now. Cold, detached, changed. And they say it like it's an insult. Like it's evidence that the sickness damaged you permanently. But you know better. You know that what they're really saying is, we can't manipulate you anymore. We can't guilt trip you anymore. We can't make you responsible for our emotional regulation anymore. You used to bend yourself into shapes that made other people comfortable, and it nearly killed you. You used to sacrifice your peace to keep the peace, and it nearly killed you. You used to accept crumbs and call it a feast because you were so starved for belonging, and it nearly killed you. So yes, you changed. You had to. The alternative was extinction. And now that you've chosen survival over comfort, chosen boundaries over belonging, chosen self-preservation over people-pleasing, They don't know what to do with you. Good. Let them be confused. Let them scramble to categorize you. Let them write essays trying to explain how someone who went through that much pain came out radiating this much power. They'll never understand, because understanding requires going through it themselves, and most of them will do anything to avoid that particular journey. Now we need to talk about what happens next, because immunity isn't the end of the story. Immunity is just the beginning. You survived the sickness, you developed the antibodies, and now you're standing at a crossroads that most people never reach. You can either hide your immunity, downplay your transformation, shrink yourself back down to make others comfortable, or you can step fully into what you've become and watch the world rearrange itself around your new frequency. Most people who survive something catastrophic spend the rest of their lives apologizing for being difficult to kill. They minimize their own strength because it makes fragile people uncomfortable. They hide their scars because it reminds others of their own unhealed wounds. They dim their light because when you shine too bright after the darkness, it exposes everyone who's still sitting in the shadows by choice. But you didn't survive the unsurvivable to play small. You didn't develop immunity to everything just to go back to being infected by everyone. This is your emergence. This is your declaration. This is the moment you stop whispering and start existing at full volume. Here's what immunity looks like in practice, and pay attention, because this is where most people stumble. Immunity means you don't take things personally anymore, because you understand that other people's behavior is always about them, never about you. It means you don't seek closure from people who are still lying to themselves, because you've learned that closure is something you give yourself. It means you don't need to be understood by everyone, because you've become so clear in your own truth that external validation feels like noise. It means you don't fear being alone because you've already survived the loneliest version of loneliness and discovered that solitude is where your power lives. It means you don't chase opportunities that chase you away because you've learned that anything meant for you won't require you to beg for it. It means you don't react to provocations because you've seen behind the curtain, and you know that people who try to trigger you are simply showing you their own wounds. This is what it means to be immune. This is what it means to move through life untouchable, not because nothing can reach you, but because you've already been reached by the worst and you're still standing. Let me tell you about the people who can't handle your immunity, because this is important. There are people in your life right now who are deeply disturbed by your transformation. They're not happy you survived. They're not celebrating your strength. They're quietly resentful that you didn't stay broken, that you didn't stay dependent, that you didn't stay controllable. These are the people who benefited from your sickness, who fed off your insecurity, who felt powerful only when you felt powerless. Your healing threatens their entire identity because it means they have to face themselves without you as a distraction. Watch how they try to reinfect you. Watch how they bring up old wounds just to see if you'll bleed again. Watch how they minimize your growth by saying you've changed, as if staying the same after going through hell would be something to be proud of. These people are not your people. They never were. They were just familiar, and you mistook familiarity for family. But now you know better. Now you can spot the difference between people who celebrate your immunity and people who are threatened by it. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need to cut them off dramatically or make big announcements. You just become unavailable to the frequency they're operating on. You stop matching their energy. You stop engaging in their chaos. You become incompatible with their vibration, and they slowly realize they can't reach you anymore, not because you blocked them, but because you evolved past them. This is where it gets really interesting, because once you're immune, once you're operating from this new place of unshakable centeredness, you start attracting a completely different caliber of people. Not better people necessarily, but real people. People who've also been to the underworld and came back with something to show for it. People who don't need you to perform or pretend or make yourself smaller. People who see your scars and recognize them as credentials, not liabilities. People who match your depth because they've also stared into the abyss and decided to build a home there. These are your real connections. These are the people who will ride with you, not because it's convenient, but because there's a mutual recognition of what it takes to become immune. You'll know them by how they make you feel. Not validated, not fixed, but seen, truly seen. They won't try to complete you because they understand you're already whole. They won't try to save you because they know you already saved yourself. They'll just walk beside you. Two immune systems recognizing each other. Two people who survive the thing that kills most, building something new in the aftermath. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the part that nobody wants to admit but everyone needs to hear. Your immunity makes some people deeply uncomfortable, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your existence is a walking reminder of what they could have become if they'd chosen differently. You chose to face your pain. They chose to medicate theirs. You chose to feel everything and transmute it. They chose to numb everything and pretend it doesn't exist. You chose to burn down everything that wasn't serving you. They chose to stay in situations that are slowly killing them because it's familiar. And now here you are, living proof that you can survive the unsurvivable, and it makes them question everything. Am I really stuck? Or have I just been afraid to move? Am I really powerless, or have I just been using my power away? Am I really this fragile, or have I just been using my fragility as an excuse? Your immunity forces these questions to the surface, and most people hate you for it, not consciously. They'll say they're happy for you. They'll say they're proud of you, but watch their eyes, watch their body language, watch how quickly they change the subject when you talk about your transformation. They can't celebrate what convicts them. Here's the thing about being immune to everything. It doesn't mean nothing ever hurts you again. It means when things hurt, you don't mistake the pain for a problem. Pain is just information now. It's your system telling you something needs attention, something needs adjustment, something needs to be released. But it doesn't break you anymore. It doesn't send you spiraling into existential crisis. It doesn't make you question your entire existence. You feel it, you process it, you extract the lesson, and you keep moving. This is the superpower nobody tells you about. Most people spend their entire lives running from pain, and that running creates more suffering than the pain itself ever could. But you learn to run toward it. You learn to meet it at the door with curiosity instead of fear. You learn that pain is just energy, and energy can be transformed. So now when life hits you, and it will keep hitting you, because that's what life does, you don't crumble. You don't question whether you can handle it. You already know you can. You've got the antibodies. You've got the immune response. You've survived worse with less, and that knowledge makes you untouchable in the ways that matter. Let's talk about what you're capable of now, that you're immune to the things that paralyze most people. You're capable of walking away from anything that doesn't align with your peace, and you won't lose sleep over it. You're capable of saying no without explanation, justification, or guilt. You're capable of sitting in uncomfortable silence while other people scramble to fill the void because you've learned that silence reveals more than words ever could. You're capable of being misunderstood and not needing to correct the record because you know who you are, and that's enough. You're capable of losing people and understanding that not everyone is meant to go where you're going. You're capable of being criticized and recognizing that criticism says more about the critic than it does about you. You're capable of taking risks that terrify others because you've already survived your worst-case scenario. You're capable of building from nothing because you've done it before when you had even less than nothing. This is what immunity gives you. Not arrogance, not coldness, not apathy, but an unshakable foundation that allows you to move through the world as if you're protected by something greater than fear. They're going to test you, you know that, right? They're going to test your immunity constantly, trying to find the cracks, trying to locate the weakness, trying to prove that you're not really as healed as you claim to be. They'll bring up your past. They'll poke at your insecurities. They'll try to trigger your old patterns. They'll question your motives. They'll accuse you of being too much or not enough. They'll do everything in their power to make you react the way you used to react, to make you shrink the way you used to shrink, to make you question yourself the way you used to question yourself. And here's what you do. Nothing. You do absolutely nothing. You don't defend. You don't explain. You don't prove. You just exist in your truth so completely that their tests become irrelevant. You let them exhaust themselves trying to shake you while you remain unmoved.